Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Secretary, how many employees did the Department of Energy have when you took over?
Just around 16,000 government employees.
How many does it have today?
A little under 16,000 today.
How much have you reduced it percentage-wise?
So far, only a relatively small amount. We are looking at larger reductions, and as Senator Murray mentioned, we have offered voluntary plans and programs for people to be compensated by the government as they transition to another career. We've done this slowly, carefully, with a lot of engagement with people, and while looking at how to restructure our department. So the ultimate reduction in workforce will be larger than it's been today, but today our payroll has barely moved.
Most entities in the private sector of the size of the Department of Energy know how to modernize and downsize, do they not?
It's essential to survival as a business. If you want to roll with changes in the marketplace and the business, you better be ready to change your organization.
Okay. I just read recently where Microsoft, one of the most successful companies in the world, is going to reduce its workforce by 6,000 employees. Do you think that's going to be the end of Microsoft?
No, it won't be the end of Microsoft. These are, I will say, these are the hardest things to do, whether it's in a company or a government agency. You know, these are people's lives, and our department is blessed with tremendous men and women who've made enormous contributions. But you're right, Senator Kennedy. We have to look at it critically and right size and align the organization to the missions and challenges of today.
Let me ask you a couple of specific questions, Mr. Secretary. As a result, we had a party around here under the Biden administration. And when you have a party, you have to pay the band when the party's over. As a result of the party, if you count the Inflation Reduction Act, which was the Green New Deal, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also part of the Green New Deal, the CHIPS and Science Act, your department got $99 billion in new appropriations, $30.5 billion in new authorizations, and loan authority of over $400 billion. How much of that $400 billion authority to loan money did the Department of Energy use?
Nearly $100 billion. Nearly $100 billion. Thank you for making the point that more money, as is shown in your graph and the numbers you quoted, and more people, that headcount in the department grew over 20% during those 4 years. Our electricity output of the nation as a whole grew about 2%, and the cost per unit of electricity grew 28%.
Well,
we didn't deliver results for all that.
Here's what the Inspector General said about some of the loans. The Inspector General, these are the Inspector General's assessment, not mine. The Inspector General called many of these loans, quote, high risk. High risk. And he said that these loans were designed to promote innovation by financing projects, fine, not otherwise acceptable by private equity and investors. What does that mean? That means that the private sector wouldn't get near these projects with a 10-foot pole, would they? Only government would put up the money, wouldn't it?
That's correct.
For example, he found that DOE, under your predecessor, announced that it was going to make a $400 million loan. Actually, it wasn't a loan, it was a grant to two companies. They announced it. And then somebody pointed out to them that they were Chinese companies. They had to pull the grant back. Why are we loaning money? This is another issue brought out by the Inspector General. Why are we loaning $7.5 billion to Stellantis? They can't get a bank loan themselves. I mean, J.P. Morgan and Bank of America have been shoving money out the door for energy projects. Why did we loan $9.63 billion to Blue Oval? Why are we doing all of this? I'm gonna quickly give you an example. I had a gentleman, I'm not going to use any names, come into my office yesterday. He's from a very wealthy family in another country. He wants to build a solar manufacturing plant in America. He's putting up $1 billion. You know how much the American taxpayer is going to put up? $850 million. So he's going to get, thanks to the American taxpayer, $1 billion plant for $150 million to produce solar panels, which the world is awash in. This is unconscionable. And I hope you'll do something about it, Mr. Secretary. Now, at some point, we're going to get real specific about savings. And I'm going to expect you to get real specific with us. I don't want to not fund anything that's vital. But I'm tired of the spending porn. I'm tired of it.
I think you have good reason to be concerned with how monies have been deployed outside of the loan program office and for other assistance as well. And we'll come back to that, but I think your concern is well placed.
Vice Chair Murray. I want to go back to some of your earlier testimony, be sure I heard it correctly. The 76-day period you're talking about, that's the period between the time that President Trump was elected and President Biden left office. Is that right?
That is correct.
And during that short period of time, 76 days, how much taxpayer money went out the door of the Department of Energy?
From the loan program office in loans and commitments, $93 billion. Well over twice as much as in the previous 15 years. So,
how do you vet and do due diligence on a loan in 76 days? One loan, much less $93 billion. How do you do it?
I think it's probably pretty clear it wasn't done in many cases. As I mentioned, I'm told I'm holding back clearly in place stuff. There is lots of funds that have gone out the door and commitments that were made from businesses that provided no business plan, no numbers about their own financial solvency or how this project
So
can
you're
actually
telling
work.
me that the Department of Energy, in the 76-day period, before their boss was going to leave office, gave or loaned money to entities that had no business plan?
Correct.
No financials?
Correct. A number of those were were before the 76-day period as well. I've come in with great concern about how this institution, this great American institution, has been run and how American taxpayer money has been handled. I'm sorry everyone's upset that we're taking some time to do it, but what we've seen and what the record shows
I'm
is
not
just
upset. Could it be that
irresponsible.
a lot of people say you haven't returned your calls? Could it be that you and your colleagues have returned the calls, but the people calling just didn't like the answer? Could that be a possibility?
I'm not aware of that. You know, I give my cell phone number to any senator that
I know
wants
you
it,
do.
and I return my calls.
I mean, has your department gone dark? Somebody said your department's gone dark. Is it dark over there?
It doesn't look dark behind me.
I don't see any of you sitting on your hands. Somebody made that charge. I see everybody's hands. Let me ask you something else, Mr. Secretary. Does anybody ever come to the Department of Energy to get some of this free money and lie to you?
I have not experienced that, but I think it's a reasonable assumption that that has happened.
Does anybody ever come to you? Or is it conceivable that some of these folks that heard about this free money came to you with a half-baked idea?
I think it's very conceivable. In fact, I've seen such plans that were
You've seen
half-baked would be
plans
charitable.
that didn't have a business plan, right?
Correct. A promise to develop one, to find a location.
Just give me the money and I'll develop the plan later.
Correct.
And now you're going back through, not money that's already been contracted, but you're going back through and checking each one of these loans and these grants to make sure there was no stealing, aren't you?
We are.
And
We
you
are.
make sure there was no incompetence, aren't you? Is that correct?
We're looking at that, and yeah, my blood pressure is rising right now just thinking about what we have seen and what did happen at the department.
And you're going to tell some of these boondoggles no, aren't you?
That's correct.
And they're going to be upset, aren't they?
That's correct.
And they ought to be upset, shouldn't they?
I don't think they should be upset. I think they should be ashamed.
It's rare that I'm speechless. But I want to be sure I understood. The people running the Department of Energy for President Biden's administration shoveled $93 billion, not million, $93 billion out the door in 76 days, and it just happened to be the time between when President Trump was elected and President Biden, their boss, was leaving. Is that right?
It is correct and distasteful. Confidence undermining.
My God. Look, I hope you take whatever time you need to go through all of these projects penny by penny. I mean, I've heard this testimony today. Well, it'll cost jobs in my state. If somebody steals $50 million and goes and spends the money in their state, that's going to stimulate the economy, isn't it?
Yes, it will.
But that's still stealing, isn't it? And it's still illegal, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, they were spending money at the Department of Energy like it was ditch water. Their budget went from $60 billion to $160 billion since fiscal year 2021. It just sounds to me like there were a lot of people coming to the Department of Energy who had all 4 feet and their snout in the trough. And I hope you'll turn down the boondoggles and refer the thieves to the Department of Justice.
We will indeed. Senator, the one complication in there, too, is mixed in there are good companies doing good things honestly with credible plans.
And you're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do. That's our job, and we're doing it. But there's a lot of chaff.
Let me ask you one final question. Let me go back to how many employees you have. Now, there have been some allegations today that you've cut tens of thousands of employees. Is that accurate?
Well, I think the allegations were thousands, and our head count will ultimately be reduced by thousands, but we are doing it slowly.
You've got 16,000 now?
Yes.
And you think you can do it with fewer than 16,000?
Correct.
What's wrong with that?
I think it's just common sense business.
Yeah. Businesses do it every day in the real world.
American taxpayers deserve it.
That's never happened in the federal government. I mean, it's easier to divorce your spouse than to get rid of a federal employee up here. That's not the way the world works, is it, Mr. Secretary?
It's not the way the world should work. And I give enormous credit to President Trump, who had the boldness to say, if there's a right thing that needs to be done and it's difficult, please do it. And so, yes, this is new territory. This is not what happens normally in the federal government, but it is what needs to happen periodically in the federal government. And I give the credit to President Trump, who's willing to take the heat and has set the departments free. Make the changes you need to make to better serve American taxpayers and American consumers. And across his administration, that's what's being done.
All right, on that note, I just wanted to clear that up, Mr. Secretary, because I don't know you to be a person who doesn't return his phone calls or take care of business. And my guess is you don't tolerate people around you who take a cavalier approach to their job. And I wanted to get that on the record. I applaud you for being able to do the job with fewer people. Thank you for being here today. Thank you to all of your staff. Y'all can't take the rest of the day off. It's still the record's going to the hearing record's going to remain open for a week. Some senators may send you additional questions. They might submit additional information for the record within that time. It's their prerogative. If they have questions, I hope you'll try to answer them in a reasonable amount of time. I want to thank you for being here today, and the subcommittee will now stand adjourned.
Thank you, Senator, and the committee. Thank you.